said, "Good morning, Jim," as the light from the window peeked through our bedroom curtains. My spouse gave me a sweet smile, still drowsy from sleep. Jim's voice, thick with sleep. "Morning, Amelia. You're up early." With my hands resting lightly on my stomach, I perched on the side of the bed. I couldn't sleep. Too excited, I guess. "Can you believe it? We're going to be parents." Jim's eyes glowed. He stretched out and put his palm over mine, saying, "It's amazing. I can't wait to meet our little one." "We're going to have a beautiful family, Amelia." I bent down and gave him a little peck on the forehead. "I love you, Jim. Thank you for being with me on this journey." "I love you more, and I'll be here for you and our baby," he whispered as he drew me in. The quiet moment was broken as we embraced, and the doorbell rang. Jim gave a jovial moan. "Saved by the bell. I'll get it." I was really happy as I saw him walk out of the room. From our first date to our wedding, and now to the excitement of expecting our first child, our life together had been a flurry of bliss. Everything seemed ideal. Jim was in the living room, and I heard him welcome our guest. "Good morning, Mom. What brings you here so early?" The room was filled with the piercing yet loving voice of his mother. "I just wanted to check on Amelia. Is she taking care of herself and the baby?" She gave me a questioning look as soon as I walked into the living room. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. I'm doing well, thank you." She gave a nod, her gaze relaxing slightly. "You need to be careful, Amelia. Pregnancy is delicate, especially with your family history." I reassured her. "I'm following all the doctor's advice, and Jim's been a great support." Jim encircled me with his arm and said, "Amelia is doing great, Mom. We're both really excited." Mrs. Thompson grinned, although not quite to the point of her eyes. "Well, I'm here if you need any advice. After all, I've been through this a few times." "Thank you," I replied, acknowledging the underlying strain in her concern. Jim and I shared a glance as she was leaving. We had an unspoken understanding. Whatever the case, we were all in this together. With our shared love and our child's laughter, the future appeared bright. I was not able to ask for more. The ultrasound image left me feeling a mixture of astonishment and terror. The doctor had remarked, "Everything looks normal," but I couldn't get over my fear. Later that night, when I told Jim about my concerns, his reply was comforting, but also full of his own unspoken anxieties. Jim embraced me and said, "You know, Amelia, we'll handle whatever comes our way." I put my head on his chest and said, "I know, but it's the what-ifs that scare me." The true problem started one weekend when his mother, Mrs. Harper, came to stay with us. I heard them talking in the living room while I was making tea in the kitchen. Mrs. Harper's voice was harsh and accusing. "Jim, you know it's her lifestyle. I've read about these things. She's not careful enough." I entered, attempting to hide my pain behind a kind grin. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Harper. Would you like some tea?" Shrugging off my offer, she turned to face me. "Amelia, this condition of yours, it's because of your habits. I've never seen you exercise." It surprised me. "Actually, I jog every morning, and I've never smoked or—" She abruptly interrupted me. "Well, I don't believe it. You young people always think you know better." Jim attempted to step in after noticing the tension. "Mom, Amelia's been really careful. The doctor said it's a genetic thing, not lifestyle." She persisted, though. "Genetics? Nonsense. It's about how you live. I raised you better than this, Jim." There was an unsettling stillness in the room. Under his mother's stern gaze, I sensed Jim's support faltering. It marked the start of a rift that will only get bigger over time. Mrs. Harper gave me a look that clearly expressed her disdain as she was leaving. I lay awake that night, Jim's snores a sharp contrast to the whirlwind of anxieties racing through my head. The impending presence of doubt and criticism cast a shadow over the future, making it appear unexpectedly uncertain. The atmosphere in our home has shifted since the diagnosis. It was unnerving, but unsaid, like a quiet storm building. Jim and I were a team once, but not anymore. One evening, Jim entered the room with a worried expression on his face, as I carefully tucked a cushion behind my back. He sat next to me and said, "Amelia, we need to talk." I turned to face him, feeling heartbroken. "What is it, Jim?" He tentatively said, "It's about the pregnancy, the risks. I think you should be more careful. Maybe cut back on work?" A twinge of frustration stung me. "I am being careful, Jim. The doctor said my work isn't a factor." With a groan, he massaged his temples. "It's just, Mom thinks you're not taking this seriously. She mentioned seeing you at a cafe, having coffee." "Coffee? Really, Jim? You know I've switched to decaf. Why is your mother spying on me?" I erupted in fury. Jim argued, "It's not like that, Amelia. She's just worried." "She's turning you against me, Jim. Are you concerned or controlling about this?" I shook my head, stunned. He could not meet my gaze as he drifted off, saying, "No, it's not that. I just—" Silence hovered between us for a minute, heavy and uneasy. I then collected my ideas. "Jim, do you trust me?" "Of course I do, Amelia, but—" "Then please, stand by me, not against me. We need to be united, for our daughter's sake." Jim appeared conflicted, his allegiance split between me and his mother. At last, he grasped my hand. "You're right. I'm sorry. It's just all this stress." I gave him a tight squeeze in an attempt to rekindle our relationship. "We'll get through this, together, as a family." I hoped my comments would be enough to close the widening distance between us as he nodded. However, I secretly worried that once skepticism was ingrained, it would be difficult to remove. It was an emotional roller coaster the day I became a mother. As I lay in the hospital bed, holding my little girl, I experienced a mixture of happiness and fatigue. Jim was standing next to me, a proud smile on his face. He stroked Amelia's little hand and whispered, "She's perfect, Amelia. Identical to her mother." I gave him a weary smile as I experienced a wave of affection for our small family. However, the sound of the door creaking open cut into the moment. Jim's mother entered, surveying the space with a critical gaze. Clasping the infant in her arms, she commanded, "Let me see my granddaughter." Jim nudged the infant into his mother's arms, and I hesitated. He pleaded, "Mom, please be gentle." With a sigh, she held the infant. "James, I know how to hold a baby. Did I not raise you?" I noticed her sulking over the infant and became a little irritated. This was meant to be our unique moment, and here she was once more, commanding. Jim saw that I was uncomfortable. He said, "Mom, maybe give Amelia some space." But his mother dismissed him with a wave. "Nonsense. Amelia must take a nap." With a tone that left little room for debate, she said, "I'll take care of the baby." My want to object and assert my motherly right to hold my child was strong, but fatigue overcame me. I closed my eyes and reclined, taking in Jim and his mother's quiet murmurs. That's when I knew that parenthood would be a battleground, not just against endless worries and restless nights, but also against my mother-in-law's oppressive presence. I silently swore to myself and my kid as I fell into a light sleep. Whatever the obstacles ahead, I would be the best mother I could be. After giving birth, going back to work seemed like entering a tornado. Around me, the workplace was in full swing, with coworkers greeting me with smiles and piles of unfinished business. My thoughts alternated between project deadlines and my daughter's welfare back home. When I got home one evening, Jim was in the living room looking nervous. He avoided looking at me and remarked, "Amelia, we need to talk about Lily's care." I questioned, dropping my purse as a knot in my gut began to grow. "Why? What's wrong?" "I've been taking her to my mother's place while you're at work. She has experience with kids, and I thought," Jim said, after he hesitated for a moment. My voice rose in surprise. "You thought what, Jim? That I wouldn't mind you going behind my back?" "It's not like that, Amelia. I just wanted the best for Lily." He shot back, sounding accusatory. With growing fury, I shot out, "The best? By exposing her to your mother, who blames me for everything under the sun?" With a groan, Jim combed through his hair. "She's just trying to help, Amelia. You know how she is." Feeling a sensation of tiredness wash over me, I retorted, "That's exactly why I'm upset, Jim. Your mother's help comes with constant criticism and negativity. Jim came up to me after getting to his feet and said, "I'm sorry, Amelia. I just thought it was a good idea at the time." I averted my gaze, feeling deceived. "Well, it wasn't, Jim. We need to figure out another arrangement for Lily." With a serious gaze, he nodded. "Okay, we'll sort it out. I'm sorry for not discussing it with you first." I felt a chasm growing between Jim and me as he held me. It was a reflection of his mother's quiet displeasure. Already difficult had been my return to work, and now I was burdened with an additional layer of familial stress. I murmured, "I don't know, Carlos," as I absent-mindedly stirred my coffee at our kitchen table. "It's just, things have been off lately." Jim's friend Carlos, who had grown close to the family, shot me a worried glance. "Off how? You and Jim seem great whenever we're over." Unsure of how to describe the uneasiness that had settled in my heart, I bit my lip. "It's not just Jim. It's his mom, and now there's this new colleague of mine." Carlos leaned closer, his face grave. "What about your colleague?" "She's a little too friendly with Jim, and it doesn't seem to bother him," I revealed after hesitating for a while. Carlos scowled. "Have you talked to Jim about it?" Jim entered with a forced smile on his face before the door could open and I had a chance to respond. "Hey, what are you two conspiring about?" he quipped. "Nothing," I hurriedly answered, my heart pounding. "Just work stuff." Jim seemed unconvinced, but he ignored it. He looked across to Carlos. "How's Isabella doing?" Carlos gave a shrug. "She's okay, I guess. Been acting a bit strange lately, though." I glanced at them both and realized something at once. Our small group's dynamics were changing, with secrets boiling beneath the surface. I was still filled with fear when I lay in bed later. Jim was sound sleeping beside me, his breathing unhurried and unaware. I noticed a message from Isabella when I grabbed for my phone. When I opened it, my heart skipped a beat. "Amelia, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." A knot of cold felt in my gut. Why would Isabella feel the need to talk about something so quickly? And why did everything seem to be connected? I made an effort to sound casual during a hurried breakfast the following morning. "Jim, is everything okay with you and Isabella?" With a reserved face, Jim raised his head from his cereal. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," I muttered, sensing his reluctance. "She messaged me last night, said she needed to talk." Jim's fork clanked loudly against the dish. "Talk about what?" I shrugged, attempting to sense his response. "I don't know, but I'm meeting her later today." Jim gave a long nod, inscrutable gaze. "Okay, then." I couldn't get rid of the impression that there was more to his response as he headed off to work. There was clearly something wrong, and I was determined to figure out what. As I sat there in the dimly lit cafe, my heart was racing. I waited, impatiently stirring my coffee, the message from Jim's friend's ex-girlfriend, Isabella, stuck in my head. "We need to talk about Jim." The clatter of dishes and murmur of conversations around me felt distant. Isabella showed up, looking upset, her eyes evading mine. "Amelia, I have to tell you something," she stumbled. "What is it, Isabella?" I asked, sounding a little impatient and worried at the same time. She muttered, "It's Jim," as her eyes finally met mine. "I saw him with your colleague. They were too close, Amelia. It wasn't just friendly." I felt a chill go down my spine. With my voice almost audible, I questioned, "Are you sure?" "Yes." She bit her lip in response. I didn't want to believe it, but Carlos saw it too. They were at your house when you were at work. My thoughts whirled, picturing Jim and my associate in front of me. More to myself than to Isabella, I whispered. "But why? Why would he do this?" Isabella reached over the table and touched my hand. "I'm so sorry, Amelia. After falsely accusing you, I felt I had to tell you the truth." I withdrew, feeling a mixture of desperation and rage. "I must witness this for myself," I declared, suddenly getting to my feet. Isabella yelled, "Amelia, wait," as I quickly left. That night, I went up to Jim. Isabella told me everything, I uttered, maintaining a steady tone despite my internal anguish. Jim's expression went white. His words, "Amelia, it's not what you think," were halting. I yelled, "Don't lie to me, Jim. How could you betray our family like this?" After a brief period of silence, Jim remarked, "I was just confused. It didn't mean anything." I shook my head, shocked by this. "I trusted you, Jim. We have a daughter, a life together, and you threw it all away for a fling?" He lowered his gaze and mumbled, "I'm sorry, Amelia." "Sorry isn't enough," I murmured, my voice cracking. "I need time to think, to figure out what to do next." I felt a deep sense of betrayal as I left Jim standing in the living room, but I was also becoming more determined. I would find a way to go on, both for our daughter and for myself. I felt strangely comforted by the sound of coffee cups clinking as I sat across from Isabella at our regular cafe. "I find it unbelievable that Jim would injure me," I said as I carelessly stirred my coffee. Isabella extended her hand across the table, compassion shining in her eyes. "I know, Amelia, but we can't let them get away with this. We need a plan." I felt a wave of resolve go over me as I nodded. "We do. They can't just trample over our lives and expect no consequences." Isabella spoke softly as she leaned closer. "What if we expose them? Publicly?" It was audacious, bordering on risky, but it ignited something within of me. "During the company's big presentation," I proposed, a strategy beginning to take shape. Her eyes gleamed. "Yes, it's perfect. Jim and Carlos will be presenting. What if we replace their presentation files with evidence?" It was hard for me to believe we were thinking about this. "It's risky, but it could work. We have the footage and the screenshots." Isabella took out her phone and showed me a video and a series of messages. "This is from Carlos's phone. It's damning." I experienced a wave of excitement and nausea. "We'll need to be careful. Can you get access to the presentation laptop?" "I believe so. Carlos consistently uses his passwords carelessly," she shot back with a playful twinkle in her eye. We went over each step in detail for the next hour. Just before the presentation, we would switch out the flash drives. There had to be an immediate high shock value. Isabella held my hand as we said our goodbyes. "We can do this, Amelia, for ourselves." That evening, as I got home, I had an odd feeling of serenity. With a distracted nod, Jim greeted me, totally unaware of the impending storm. That night, as I lay in bed, the repercussions were on my mind. But then I thought of Isabella's hurt, of Jim's betrayal, of his mother's accusations. We were acting in defense of justice and our own dignity. My heart was thumping hard in my chest the morning before the presentation. This was it, the real deal. Amidst the audience's gasps and whispers, I witnessed the debut slide of the adulterous tape on the large screen and realized there was no going back. Never again would our lives be the same. Following the intense period of disclosing Jim and Carlos, life returned to a more tranquil cadence. I was readjusting to my new role as a single mother and gradually reconstructing my life. I was lost in contemplation one evening as I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea while my daughter slept. With warm, worried eyes, my mother came in. "Amelia, you've been so strong," she said, bringing a chair up next to me. "But you don't have to carry all of this alone." Feeling the weight of the last few months, I let out a sigh. "I know, Mom. It's just hard to let go, to trust again." She reached out and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "Trust will come, in time. But now, focus on you and your little one. You two are what truly matter." Her words were a salve, calming my inner agony. With a slight smile pulling at my lips, I nodded. "You're right. I need to find my footing again, for her and for me." I put myself into my work and trying to be the best mother I could be as the days went by. My daughter's giggles served as a haven for me and a constant reminder of life's little pleasures. Isabella joined us when we were playing in the park one afternoon. Following a few paws of observing us, she remarked, "You know, Amelia, seeing you like this, so full of life, it's inspiring." Startled, I looked up. "Really?" "Definitely," she replied. "You've come so far. You're not just surviving, you're thriving." Long after our park day, her remarks continued to reverberate in my head. Thriving instead of merely surviving became my new motto. After putting my daughter to bed, I would often think back on my travels in the stillness of the night. Though they were a part of my tale, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the revenge did not define me. I was a woman, rediscovering her strength and value. I was more than just my history. I was a friend, a mother, and a professional. I came to see that this chapter involved more than just picking up the pieces as I gradually rebuilt my life. It was about repurposing the broken into something lovely and new. And there was, where I discovered my hope. I now understand that life is an unexpected journey. My daughter's laughing soothed my once tired heart as I watched her play as I was seated in my comfortable living room. Although the previous few months had been chaotic, there was now a sense of calm and a fresh start. Emma, my daughter, held out a drawing and said, "Mommy, look. It's you and me and Auntie Isabella." I grinned and removed the vibrant paper from her grasp. "It's beautiful, sweetie. Auntie Isabella will love it." Emma hurried to answer the door as the doorbell rang. "Auntie Isabella!" With a smile as radiant as the June sun, Isabella entered. "Hey, little munchkin," she exclaimed, glancing over at Emma before asking, "How are you holding up, Amelia?" "Better," I answered. "Every day feels a little lighter." After taking a seat next to me, Isabella said, "I brought some pastries. Thought we could have a little treat." Emma excitedly clapped her hands. "Yay, pastry party." Isabella became solemn as we were setting the supper. "Amelia, I've seen how strong you've become. It's inspiring." With a mixture of thankfulness and introspection, I let out a sigh. "It wasn't easy, Isabella, but I learned that sometimes letting go is the only way to move forward." "You're a wonderful mother," she remarked, "and an incredible friend." Emma laughed and broke off our conversation. "Mommy, you're the bestest." We all laughed together, the laughter resonating and bringing joy to the entire room. Later, Isabella and I enjoyed our tea while Emma played. "You know," I replied, "I've been thinking about writing, maybe a blog or even a book about our experiences." Isabella urged, "That's a great idea. Your story could help so many people." With a renewed sense of purpose, I nodded. I want Emma to know that her mom didn't just survive, she thrived. I observed the sunset as the evening was coming to an end, its colors decorating the sky. Despite the unexpected turns life had taken, here I was, stronger than ever. I had a devoted friend, a lovely daughter, and a life story to share. So I was prepared to welcome this new phase of my existence.